So when I first started, some people sometimes like look at like somebody like me or like a Ryan Escalera, or like, or I mean, you guys are gonna get to know more, like Beau a lot more, but or Gabe or other people think like, man, like they're up here, like I'm never gonna get there. So I started 5 years ago, back in April 2016, and I mean, I hit the ground running. I started doing like the contact form submission thing way back then, and I hit on Beau's landscaping website back in like, it was like May or June. It was like a month or 2 months in, and I hit like 3 or 4 of his sites because he was all on like the East Coast of Florida. And then he sends me a message like, "Hey, bro, I'm in the same group. You're barking up the wrong tree, dog." And so, but he was a good champ about it. And then like we connected from that and became like best friends, And so I've known him for just as long as, I mean, he was the first person I met, and JK's second person was Ipe at the event. And then, happy birthday! So Gabe was talking about like leveling up, and I want to share this analogy. Like, it's actually not even an analogy; it's actually real. So they study like sharks, and they put like a shark in like a 2-foot, like a 24-inch like fish tank, and they studied how like over the years that shark didn't grow any bigger because of its environment. But you put that same shark in the ocean, and it grows like over 12 to 15 feet. And so it's all about like environment. It's all about knowing who to surround yourself around, and like, if you want to be an eagle, you can't fly with pigeons. So if the people around you are trying to hold you down, you got to get away from them so you can level up. And that's gonna get you out your comfort zone. So that means like, me and Beau, we booked our flight like 40 hours ago to come out here under extreme circumstances. And not really, but it's all about like, because I knew the power of just like being together. And I remember when I first joined JK in April, I remember like 2 weeks later, Dan had mentioned like about this event, and I'm like, I'm never going to Vegas. And so I was like, I got to do that. But I also knew, because of some personal development I had been going through, the power of just like getting together with others that were already where you're at or along the journey. And so I'm like, if I, hitch my like little cabin on that train, then I'm going to be able to propel forward. And so that's why anytime like there's events or there's meetups, like I do it, I invest it. Even though like during that time, I was like I was like living on some credit cards. I was like, I'm already in debt. Let me just, throw it to these anyways. And so, but that helped me level up, And so it took my income from like $1,500 a month, like 3 months into like, $3,000 about 6 months in. This was back then. I mean, people are doing that way quicker now, to like 10 grand and then keep on going. And so, Beau, you want to kind of talk about like the power of just like, surrounding yourself with like the right environment, and just kind of spit on that for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So like when we get into this, we're all in JK, we kind of look at each other as competition, but realistically, like we've all paid to be here, and like this is a great community. We got to fight through so much adversity. Google, algorithm updates, business owners, other JKers, but at the end of the day, we just look at the big picture and go, man, his business owner might not be able to close that lead, but mine will. So if there's already somebody in like a certain niche that you're in, like a JKer, and you're like, man, like I don't want to get into that. No, get into that anyway. Get your hands dirty. Use the power of each other, to kind of propel yourselves forward. Like look at each other as assets. Don't look at each other as competition, because the whole world's full of competition. Like just Google. There's all those other different businesses. You know what? That they're fighting for our leads. They're fighting for what we're doing. And guess what? We're gonna make money off of that because we're damn good at it.
Yeah. The best thing to do is like, if there's a like, let's say another JKer in like an area you're in, who cares? Like partner up with them. You know what I mean? Like there's several JKers that are like, I'm partnered up with them because their business owner wants to dominate the area, and they'll pay a premium for it. So don't think like, oh, there's someone already in it. Do your due diligence. Like that 100 like sheets of due diligence, I did that. Like, I mean, even now I'm still doing due diligence. I know I mentioned that before in the live, but like the power of this business model, like the number one skill set you should master outside of like the other things we're teaching with SEO and web building is really due diligence. It's learning how to be that like Assassin's Creed, like ninja, like, internet consultant for local businesses, so you can show them like where they're at and where they need to be, and how you can be the solution to that gap. You know what I mean? And so when you can be the solution to that gap, they'll pay what they need to pay to get to the other side, which is customers.
Love it. Beau, maybe you've been like one of the OGs. Maybe you can share your story. Like, where were you at before you hopped into JK?
Oh man, I was doing sales for AT&T. I did door-to-door sales. I was in basically sales. So when I looked at this opportunity, I was, you know, I got out of that. I started bartending, but then I got on the phone with Dan, and Dan's just like, bro, doesn't this make sense? I'm like, you know what? It does make sense. Well, why don't I do this? And I had two options when I hung up the phone with him. I was like, I'm either gonna hate this guy and I'm never gonna call him again, or I'm just gonna give him my information and like, let's roll. So when I started bartending, man, I was getting drunk every single night, making bad decisions, chasing girls, doing all the, you know, time and money. Those are two, you know, positives, but I was going after all the negatives. So it was just kind of like a really rough spot. But once I got in here, I started shooting my mentality to going, you know, how can I do this? How can I make this work? Versus going, oh man, this isn't going to work for me. I blew up, dude. I blew up, and I'm very humble, and I like to just keep it on the low key. That's why I've never been out to Vegas or anything like that. But at the same time, like, you know,
forever.
There's some other reasons.
Peanut gallery.
And also, like, look at your journey as your journey. You know, you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of people who are doing really well. Don't get anxious. Don't get envious. Look at it as like, hey, man, it's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when I'm going to kind of get into this. So, yeah, I went from being a drunk bartender, chasing girls, to now just living the life that I actually want to live.
Still chasing girls.